this moment right now, no caveat, is perfect. I love everything about this. Now can you extend this moment to the next moment? Now what if you extended that next moment to the next moment? You know, and if you can keep on nudging that ball forward of like, this is great. Like all you have is this moment and it works.
But as soon as you get to the stage where you are satisfied and you're fulfilled, even with the smallest of things, that's when you start to really move into the direction of the enlightening path. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
Because the person who wants nothing is wealthiest of all.
So your physiology will inform your perception of the world, and your perception of the world will inform your physiology. So you work with what you got. I never cried as a teenager, and I went through some effed up stuff, really scary, uncomfortable things for a young boy. Never cried.
There's resonance, and so it feels familiar, and so you want to keep going back to it. You want to keep chasing it. You chase this and chase this and chase this until finally one day you say, no, I love myself too much to allow myself to be treated like this anymore by this external force, which is actually me, projected into an outer reality. Aaron Alexander, what a pleasure to have you here on Think Tank. Such a good friend. We've had several conversations now. This is the first time on my podcast, and super excited to get into it with you. And I'd like to say, first of all, I think you were kind of like the health and fitness extraordinary person that I've probably had a chance to meet. You and a few other people, I'd probably put Robert Breedlove in that list as well, of people that have really taken it to heart and have lived and embodied this notion of real full body mindfulness and healthy living. And I'm excited to have you here. So welcome to Think Tank.
Thanks for having me, bro. Let's get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me a little bit about your journey and your path and where you are now in that journey and path, and how we ended up getting connected through your podcast.
Yeah.
And anything else you'd like to share with us just as a precursor?
Well, we were just talking a second ago before we record this. I'm in this kind of minimalism phase of my life where I've just sold pretty much most possessions, got rid of real estate, and got rid of my car, which is a funny thing. It's an interesting thing. You just assume, you just accept, you just have a car. You always just have a car. You gotta have a car. And I'm like, I don't have a car. And I'm like, it's great. When I need to drive someplace, I call the driver, in the form of an Uber. When I walk down my driveway, it's spaciousness. It's really interesting. I mean, I live in Miami where I can walk most places, and I have an electric bike. I can get around. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm in a place of reflecting on spending some time in Bali and just reducing any type of superfluous stuff in my world. I'm actively hunting for anything that feels like it's not bringing joy in my life. I'm kind of doing a joy audit in my life right now.
A joy audit. Okay. Wow. That's intense.
I think
joy
it's
audit. So I have a question though about the car thing. I'm super curious.
Yeah.
So do you find that you actually spend less money because you're not going as many places, or do you use Uber enough that it's almost similar to what you would pay for a car?
I live in South Beach, Sunset Harbor in South Beach in Miami. Most all of my stuff is very, very close. I can walk most places. So it's not like I lived in Austin, Texas before this. I take my bike most places. And, if I'm hanging out with a gal or something, it's really fun. We're on the bike. It's a really sweet, adventurous experience. You're getting sunlight exposure. You're naturally doing all the things that people would do in the blue zones, like Dan Buettner's buck around, centenarians, people that tend to live older. People in those places, they tend to walk more. They tend to be outside more. They tend to be close with community. There's human connection. There's physical touch, which releases, oxytocin and serotonin and all the different things that make you feel good, make you feel well. Culturally, we're in a little bit of a touch epidemic or pandemic of sorts, where it's we're missing physical contact with each other. We're living in nuclear homes. We're creating more separation with each other. So any way that I think that you can start to integrate more human connection, which an example of that would be slowing things down and taking a walk to a place, saying hi to people. You think about that. Every time you go take a walk, you say hi to probably 15 people. Every time you go take a drive, you say hi to probably 0 people. So if you start to multiply that, like how can we slow things down a little bit to start to, perhaps accelerate some of like the intracellular healing stuff? It's a little paradoxical, maybe.
Hi, I'm Robert Edward Grant. I invite you to explore my transformative books, Philomath and Polymath, each designed to expand your understanding of the world and ourselves. In Philomath, which means lover of learning, discover how mathematics weaves together physics, music, and prime number theory, revealing the universe's interconnected nature. It's more than a book, it's an enlightening voyage. Polymath builds on Philomath's insights, exploring the genius of thinkers like Pythagoras and Da Vinci, who used geometry to revolutionize science, art, and governance. Rediscover the polymathic roots that spark past ages of enlightenment. Join me on this journey as well. Visit robertedwardgrant.com to get your copies today. Let's foster a new era of enlightenment and collaboration for a brighter future. Yeah. Interesting. Wow. So you get around on your bike, and by the way, I have electric bikes as well, and I love riding them around Laguna Beach. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm now thinking it's like, well, wait, maybe there is something. I don't know if I could get down to no cars, but I think I get down to 1, which is like, because I have 2, which is like, why do I really need 2? Well, because I've take stuff around and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so I tend to need 1 truck, but maybe I could get rid of my car. That's a really good idea.
I don't think it's for everybody in every place. It depends on where you live at, but choosing your geographical location, I think, is a part of health as well. You might be in a place where maybe you're in a food desert, where you just don't have access to healthy food. The concept of regenerative farmed meat or something of the sort is like, we don't even know what that means, and or maybe the nature of the people that you spend time with, they're into drinking, the way that they connect with each other is they get drunk, or maybe they do some kind of substances that might not be the best for your health, or, they just sit inside of a house and they, perpetuate the domestication of themselves. Whereas if you go to you'd be like, like this place is actually bringing me down. I'm becoming the product of the 5 people that I spend the most time with, or the community that I reside within. Mm-hmm. I want more from myself. I have a vision of what I desire. Perhaps I need to change the petri dish that my cells exist in. It's like Bruce Lipton epigenetic stuff. Mm-hmm. If you want to change the cell, you don't augment the cell itself. You change the substrate that exists within. So it's like, what's the substrate that you're in?
Mm-hmm. So you're about to make another kind of move, I guess. You just mentioned to me, and choosing the location of where you're living is also part of your mindfulness and healthy living lifestyle. So what are you contemplating there?
Oh, with going to Bali? Mm-hmm. I mean, this is, I don't know if this is relevant to stuff, just personal things, but I came out of a relationship about a year ago and had just been I moved from Austin, Texas, and cleared all of my stuff out of there, which felt really good, and, got down to less stuff. And then I still own some things like real estate and things like that, where it's like, it's things that I'm aware of, and thinking about, and the water heater gets messed up, or you got to change the roof, or there's an issue with a tenant. It's a lot of stuff. And I'm like, I'm not a landlord. Like, that's not.
It's so overrated, is it not? Because all my friends that want to own all these houses and stuff.
I'm not into it.
All my friends want to own all these houses. I've owned several houses in my lifetime. It's such a pain in the ass because there's always something that goes wrong. And even if you have managers to manage your property, you still have to manage the managers of your property.
Yeah.
And it's like always a headache. It's just, I don't know. It's just not worth it, to be honest.
Yeah, so the exercise that I'm exploring, and I think a lot of people, myself, I think there's a disbelief of how much you can have sovereignty or agency to create change in your life, because there's certain things you just accept, like this is just the way that life is. And so I'm kind of nudging up at against the boundaries right now of like, what could life be? And a part of that is like going through, like I mentioned, like a joy audit, which is just a kind of a frou-frou term I'm making up right now. but going through and, things that I'm engaging with in my life, do they lead me to the place that, I aspire to be or aspire to feel? And managing a manager or managing, a roof leak or something like that is not a part of that. And so now I'm kind of just going through, and a part of that would be another transition would be like, what if I went down to a backpack and still maintain my place in Miami as like a sublease or whatever? But what if I went down to a backpack and really, like, literally all I had was me, without the kind of thought or concern of what's happening in these other things that I don't really care that much about. I care about my brand, so continuing to do that, which brings me joy and I'm passionate about. But just trimming away the fat things, that anything that does not bring joy for me in this moment feels superfluous.
Wow. Going all the way down to a backpack. It doesn't leave a lot of space for much to wear.
Well, you get some stuff. That's another thing I think with traveling. Like I'm 38 now. I did a lot of traveling in my 20s. Like I would go through each winter. I would leave for usually like 6 months or so. I was living in Boulder, Colorado for a while, a couple other places, and I would go, and some, like, a game that I would do of sorts would be, or a challenge, is I would go without much clothes, because if I'm going to South America, or if I'm going to Asia or wherever, Europe, there will be clothes there. And so if I go to a place, which this might have some energetic symbolism, if I go to a place without a bunch of baggage, it opens up space to kind of fill myself with this new environment. So if I'm going to a new place, and I say I go to Bali, there probably is a bunch of really cool clothes. It's pretty affordable, and I can kind of, I don't need to be in this kind of scarcity mindset of like, what if I don't have my stuff? What if I kind of leave that scarcity mindset as like, oh no, like, all will be provided. Like, what would that be like to have that mindset?
What's that line from the Bible, right? Take no thought for the morrow for shall provide for itself.
Yeah. It's a weird thing.
Whither thou shalt go or wander, right? Wherever you go, whatever you do, don't even take any thought for it. It's all going to be provided for you.
Yeah. I recently had been seeing a therapist for a while. We had kind of a bit of like a little, like, I don't know, somewhat of like a soup, breakthrough of sorts for me, or just a realization. I've never in my life felt safe to feel fully just in gratitude, like fully, completely grateful, because I've always had this kind of low level whisper that something might go wrong, something might fall apart, something, which I think there's value in that, to have some type of like stoic philosophical lens on things, of like anticipating the worst possible scenario. But also, do I allow myself as a person to also exist in, man, everything is actually perfect. I don't need to change anything. Like like this moment right now, genuinely perfect. Nothing needs to change. I've never in my life allowed myself to actually be in that space, mostly because of like holding on to some seed of fear that something will go wrong. And so it's not safe to actually fully surrender into relaxation. And I think if we can start to wind back and become more sensitive with our nervous systems, and it starts to get into actual like health and physiology stuff. If you start to become more sensitive to your nervous system, have you ever really relaxed? Like, what is your definition of relaxation? And the deeper you can relax or go into a parasympathetic tone in your nervous system, the more you can begin to rest deeply, the more you can begin to repair, the more you can begin to digest, the more you can begin to menstruate if you're a female. All of the systems, all of the cleanup stuff, all the things that need to, that you need, the systems that you need to be on board in order to really thrive, really be healthy and have longevity, they can begin to come online once your mind, and your heart and your perspective on the world starts to come to the place of, it's safe to repair. And so if you're holding on to mental chatter, fear, resistance, doubt, things of the sort, it can be beneficial to some degree, like a hermetic stressor, but also having access to deep surrender, deep relaxation, deep this moment right now, no caveat, is perfect. I love everything about this. Now, can you extend this moment to the next moment? Now, what if you extended that next moment to the next moment? And if you can keep on nudging that ball forward of like, I just, this is great. Like all you have is this moment and it works. What does that do to your
This
world?
is what you're describing is exactly how I would describe the enlightening process.
I think so. I'm
Because
not saying
enlightening
claiming any kind
is
of whatever,
letting
but I think
go.
that's what it is.
Enlightening is letting go of all the conditions that you place on your happiness,
Yeah,
letting
exactly.
go of all the conditions you place on your existence. And that could also be letting go of the judgments that you place upon yourself. So all the things that you perceive that, you look in the mirror and you're like, well, I would be great. I have these great strengths, but I need to get rid of my weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
I need to basically get rid of all the things that are unsightly and unseemly about me. And either I'm going to learn how to conceal them better, or I'm going to totally get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is that the reason why you have the strengths that you have is directly related to the weaknesses that you also have. And what really is at play here is us having to learn how to transition, to understand and fall in love with things as they are, including our faults and weaknesses, including the aspects of the earth that are unsightly, ugly. It's only when we finally accept the existence that we have that we step into a divine experience. It's literally that, because you cannot be authentic by masking or hiding anything. But as soon as you get to the stage where you are satisfied and you're fulfilled, even with the smallest of things, that's when you start to really move to the direction of the enlightening path. That's how I see it.
Yeah,
Because the person who wants nothing is wealthiest of all.
that's correct. Yeah. So what feels the best to me is to have a knowing that like, oh yeah, like I could afford that, but I don't need that. And I don't even have that. But like, if I see like I think there's a different quality when you're in this wanting and you've never had. Like, I think going on the hero's journey of accruing the things, and fighting the dragons and doing all the things that you need to get to that point. And then at some point, I think for me, it feels tremendous to have a deep internal knowing of like, I could have that, but that will not bring me fulfillment and happiness. It will actually just be excessive weight in my life. So he can have the Lamborghini. Like, that's for him. Like, genuinely don't need it. Don't even want it. Like, if I had it, I would just get rid of it. And that, I think, is for me feels the best. And so how I start to wind back the things that I need to feel fulfilled, but also still be, engaged in the game, and still be
Mm-hmm.
enjoying the game, but not be consumed by the game, not be paralyzed by the game, not be imprisoned by the game.
Very true. So how did you come to this realization? What was it? Was there a recent series of events that led to this way of thinking? Has it been like this for a long time for you, or was there a catalyst?
I think I've probably, in a lot of ways, like a lot of people, have just suffered a lot in my life. Suffered in my mind, suffered in, like, not allowed myself to really feel fulfilled. And it's a beautiful thing because it's like, for most men, I think particularly, like, it is the dragon. Like, that is the dragon, I think, for most men.
It's
And
definitely the dragon.
and so and I know a lot of people that are very, very, very successful, like the most, quote unquote, most successful on the planet, like times 10. And they're fighting the same freaking dragon, and they're pushing the same Sisyphusian rock up the hill. If if that's the right analogy. Is Sisyphus right? Is that right? Is he the one
It's
pushing the
Sisyphus.
rock?
Yep.
Yeah, Sisyphus. They're still pushing that damn rock. And I feel like, for me, I think just starting to become, I ask questions. I host a podcast. I've had you on a bunch of times.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's like inquiring within. And I think therapy is a really powerful thing. If you're really honest with yourself and you have a really good therapist or good relationships, whatever, and you can really wind back of like, cool, this is great, this is working, but like, there's still a void. Like, I still don't really feel satisfied. You know, I notice, if I'm really honest, I notice that I avoid maybe being alone with myself. When I'm
Ooh.
alone with myself, suddenly I want to reach out for nicotine. I want to reach out for cell phone. I want to call somebody. I want to hang out. I want to hang out. I want to reach out to a girl. We should have, I think sex would feel good. That'll like fill this space. If you're really honest with yourself and you allow yourself to question, like, maybe I am not as strong and, you know, omnipotently powerful as I like to portray myself to be. Maybe there's still parts of me that are, I'm still working on making whole within myself. You know, there's still parts of my inner child that I haven't really fully addressed. And that time when I was, you know, for me, when I was young, like as a teenager, I had this kind of realization recently as well. I like never cried as a teenager. And I went through some like effed up stuff, like really scary, uncomfortable things for a young boy. Never cried because I didn't even understand the value of being able to express emotions and be able to like purge this emotional energy that you hold. And if you do not purge that emotional energy, it absolutely manifests in physical form. And it absolutely manifests in mental, emotional, psycho, spiritual form, as well as weight that you hold. And you don't know why you're anxious. You don't know why you're depressed. You don't know why you're greedy. You don't know why you're coveting. You know, you're doing all like the sins in the Bible because you're actually built up with, probably for a lot of people, you know, it could be as simple as just like emotional tension that you haven't allowed yourself to express. You know, so I'm kind of in this place now. Is like, my desire is to be free. And so
You know,
my
you do
inquiry
sound
from,
like a man who's just recently been through a breakup.
oh yeah, maybe, I don't know. Breakups are great. They're the best. Breakups are the best, man. Yeah. I mean,
Just saying.
I'm on the other side now.
Well, yeah, no, you're at the stage where you say, I want to be free.
Yeah,
That's sort of like and then you're like sort of like shedding everything, right?
yeah.
Because it's like a total change because all of the paradigm that you've been building up is now no longer. And so, yeah, I'm kind of in that situation, you know, myself as well.
I want to correct
So it
something in my,
resonates what you're saying.
yeah, I want to correct something in my language. If I was talking to myself, there's like a
Mm-hmm.
kind of a nudge back I would just offer to myself. When I
Mm-hmm.
say I want to be free, the meaning of want is lack, right? So if I
Mm-hmm.
want freedom, what you're saying to yourself is I lack freedom. So
Yes. Yes.
I'm rehearsing I lack freedom when I say to you in this
Yes.
conversation I want freedom.
Yes.
You know, and so for me it's like, okay. You know, another question, like,
You
is,
say I am freedom.
yeah, what if you started to just practice, just try it on? I am free. How does that feel? Does that feel untrue? Does that feel scary? Does that feel narcissistic? Does that feel silly? You know, have you kind of, it's like the Marianne Williamson quote, paraphrasing, whatever it is, but our greatest fear isn't, what is it? What does she say? Our greatest fear is not failing. It's like realizing how powerful we are. That's super
Yeah.
paraphrase.
Yeah.
But it's
Mm-hmm.
not, the fear isn't, if you really are honest with, if I really am honest with myself, because I can't speak for anybody else,
Mm-hmm.
I am, there's still a subtle, historically speaking, maybe that changes in this moment, in this conversation, I'm holding space for that. There's still a
Mm-hmm.
subtle fear of accessing my potential and accessing how
Mm-hmm.
powerful I really am.
Mm. Mm. Maybe that's why we accumulate all kinds of stuff in our life as another means of a mask over that potential.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, it gives you that external validation. You keep on packing
Mm-hmm.
on the external validation. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if they see me in this car, oh, they're going to know how great I am. If they see me with this watch, Rolex, you know what that means.
Yeah, totally.
You know, and so if you could come to that, I think there's something incredibly powerful about releasing the shackles of needing materials to feel validated.
Oof. Oof. Okay. So where do you, I mean, you've been interviewing people going down the spiritual path for sure for quite some time.
Yeah.
And if you could encapsulate all the things that have been the best nuggets of learning for you in coalescing with all these different people like myself and I know many others? What of that, I mean, has that really been your journey in a way? In addition to all of your study and reading and embodiment and everything else, is that you met with all kinds of people that were also going down their version of their own spiritual path.
Yeah.
And have you kind of taken and integrated those things? And what are the most potent and powerful aspects of the learning that you've gotten?
It's a good question. I think this conversation, honestly, I think what we're talking about right now would probably be the most potent thing. It all comes back. It's like Eckhart Tolle or Tolle. I never know how to say his name. Power of now.
Totally.
Yeah. If you can perfect now, you got it. If you're able to really actually truly, because all you have is the now perpetuates, it keeps going on, and so I think we're perpetually putting ourselves in the future. We're like teleporting ourselves into the future or into the past or any of that stuff, and it's almost like this avoidant behavior of what's in front of you right now, like you were saying before. So I think probably it would, if to respond to that question, if I had to respond to that question, I think it would be really like discard all of the stories and all the ideas, and just like, can you just as a general baseline just come into acceptance with the now? And then like Tony Robbins and such, like, keep on pulling the weeds. Like, don't go in and manifest that the weeds are going to go away. Like, no, like get to work. Get callus on your hands. Embrace the callus. And while you're pulling the weeds, I think the game is, can you actually enjoy the process of the now as you pull the weeds? I think that's the balance, and that's why New Age people are annoying. New Age people are annoying because they manifest without action, which isn't manifestation. Like, manifest is like to create. And so it's that blend of, can you actually be fully satiated in the now, but not be lazy? So can you be like a team player, but you have a smile on your face? And I think if you can figure that out, there's a lot of very wise people that don't claim wisdom. And it's the person that is just living their life, and they're working hard, and they take care of their kids, and they take care of their dog, and they just exude joy when they walk around the world. And sometimes that joy is sadness, and they exude authenticity, and they liberate others to be able to be in their authenticity, because this is what it is. Right now, I feel sad. Right now, I feel angry. And this is the wisdom of femininity. This is what men can learn from, the feminine, for the most part. Men think women are crazy because they'll go through a moment for sometimes 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 30 minutes or an afternoon where it's like the whole entire world is falling apart. Nothing's okay. I'm angry. I'm hungry. I want that. I don't want that. And it's actually beautiful, because they're actually being very authentic with exactly where they're at. Whereas the male container, it holds the emotion, it holds the field. But we can both learn from each other within that. And I think that if a person can really be authentic with their experience and not judge the experience, it provides permission for other people to be authentic. And if you do that, I think you are spreading, liberation.
Wow. Okay. So how do you think that is evolving in the collective right now? Because we can kind of look around and see some telltale signs of what's happening societally, that what you're experiencing seems to be a microcosmic view of something that's more macrocosmic and is leading to certain trend lines in society.
Yeah.
So, for example, disenfranchisement with even the concept of working your ass off to accumulate a lot of wealth, for example.
Yeah, American dream.
I sense a massive shift in that. And yet it's the foundational basis of what does it mean to be American in a way? And how is that going to impact society at large? If people all of a sudden start saying, you know what, I don't need all this other stuff, then the whole system upon which all of this is founded from a societal, economic perspective, socioeconomic perspective, starts to erode at its very base. And what does that mean for society? That's kind of the bigger question, because I mean, not everyone has the wherewithal to just start backpacking around, Bali.
It would probably I just did an interview with Matthias DeStefano a couple days ago.
Yeah, close friend of mine.
Couple times, yeah. But we were talking about like the evolution of a square to a circle, and I think that probably right now people are in, we're in more of a square paradigm. At some point, we were all circles. We're all come from nature, which is just arcs throughout nature. There's not a lot of right angles. Maybe I think no right angles. Maybe there's some example of that somewhere. There's probably a couple right angles out there actually. But for the most part, things are arcs. And also by the way, this is not like my like claimed depth. This is stuff that I enjoy talking about. The stuff that I do is more around training and movement and like physical wellness. But also within that, coming back to that, this relates to the body. The way that the body moves in arcs, and the body moves in spirals. So your calcaneal, I'll come back to your question, I promise, but bring it like anchored in the physical plane. The Achilles spirals into the calcaneus. The tibia spirals into the femur. It's called the screw home mechanism. So in the last like 15 degrees of extension being like, if you're sitting down, you kick your foot up, the tibia externally rotates and actually sinks up into the knee. As you are walking through gait, there is a guy called Serge Grakovetsky wrote a book called Spinal Engine. You are going through this spiral motion, like your spine's more like a fish. It's almost like you're swimming forward in space. All of your hip joint, your glenohumeral joint, i.e. like your shoulder joint, it's all working on this rotation, counter rotation, internal, external rotation, spiral pattern for you to allow you to be able to efficiently move through space. We are founded on spirals. We are founded on kicking, punching, throwing, running, sprinting. That's who we are as human beings, just period. And then things have evolved, or however you want to call it, just they've shifted, they've changed. And we've started to learn and adapt to things like instead of living in huts or instead of living in teepees, we live in square boxes, and we have pillars, and we have everything starts to become kind of boxy, and we start to become a little bit more boxy in the way that we think. We become a little bit more boxy in the way that we move. So now you go to a gym and you see people doing linear movements. They're working on their boxes. I think what you see in the physical exercise, wellness, athletic training, like kind of my world, you see people coming back to spirals. You see people coming back to, man, it'd be really cool to like know how to kick and punch and throw and like really do this like human stuff. And I think that there will probably also that will follow suit. I'd be kind of curious your perspective of it. Like, what does culture look like if it starts to come back to more arc patterns and more spiral patterns? I think you'd be a better person to ask, honestly, about that than I am. I'm better with the physical.
Well, you know what I just realized? There's one symbol beyond the square and the circle that you and Matthias were talking about. It's geometric as well, that encapsulates both the square and the circle into one object.
You mentioned it's like the decahedron or something like that, right? What is it called?
No, it's actually just a triangle.
Oh, okay.
A triangle.
He give me a fancier one.
So imagine you have a triangle here, right? And this triangle, the base of it becomes a square because that's all the information you need to know for a square, right? You have one side. If it's a perfect square, then its height's going to be out here, right? And then the circle that would have it as center, it would be tangent to the base of the square. The peak of the circle would be right here. So you can encode everything in a triangle of the square and a circle together, because the triangle represents the divine, but then it separates into masculine and feminine. The square being the masculine, the circle being the feminine. And so you can incorporate or encrypt all the information of both the triangle and the square into a triangle.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. The shape that Matthias mentioned was the one that's on a soccer ball, and it was like
that's a that's called the hexapentacus. Hexapentacus truncated icosahedron.
Well, that's what we're doing, man. And it's like all this desire to connect masculine, feminine. It's all just words, It's and they would like the pendulum swung.
And he's right, by the way. He is correct on that, because the hexagon. So the soccer ball is made up of hexagons and pentagons, right?
Yeah.
It's also known as a buckyball by Buckminster Fuller.
Mm-hmm.
So, or a C60, and that hexapentacus truncated icosahedron is the exact shape, by the way, of pretty much every virus that exists on Earth, because it's the way water clusters as well. So a water cluster together will make that exact shape. It'll be a bunch of icosahedron that will then form together to cluster together to form this or this hexapentacus truncated icosahedron. And it does represent the microcosm merging with the macrocosm, the feminine merging with the masculine, the logos merging with the Sophia. It's definitely the shape, and it's one of the Archimedean solids that is the foundational basis of our DNA, because that's why all of our DNA is based on hexagons marrying up with pentagons.
Yep.
Hexagon is masculine, the logos, the pentagon is Sophia, the feminine.
And so when you witness culture go into, at one point, maybe things were more matriarchal, and then things became more patriarchal, and now there's all this anger and aggression towards the patriarchy, and the number one reason for middle-aged men dying, leaving their body is unliving themselves, suicide. And it's like there's so much pressure on the masculine, and a lot of hatred, a lot of resentment, a lot of anger. It's like the pendulum swings, and then it goes feminism. It's like, men are bad. I don't need a man. It's like, okay, great, but you're just actually living in trauma. You're just expressing out trauma, which is fine. Just hopefully have some self-awareness to be able to inquire within, again, of like, I hold hate. Interesting. Like, I hold resentment. Interesting. Like, that's, once you evolve to a certain point, you'll come to a place of not placing that out and spewing that out, but you'll actually inquire within yourself, like, oh, interesting. Like, I hold this. Okay. I don't want to hold this.
I was watching this person, I won't mention the name, but someone that I've been following on social media for a while. And then she was, in a conversation talking about how women are turning away from men, and how, they're sort of just sick of men, and how men are so toxic and bad and everything. And I was like, wow, this is really not the way that I see it at all. And so I stopped following her. Yeah, I stopped following her because I was like, it's not, we should be seeking balance, not blame and retribution. And that's part of the reason why things are so messed up. Part of the reason why the masculine has been conditioned the way that it has, and the way it's become the way that it has become, is because of the relationships with mothers and women, and then lots of questions around gender and society in general on what's acceptable. I have a 6-year-old boy, and I tell you what, I would not want to be growing up in today's world as a 6-year-old boy, because the amount of vitriol that has been artificially, I would say, heaped on top of what it means to be a man today is just, wow. And I think that needs to be healed. I also believe that it needs to be healed on the other direction as well. That the women who say those things also clearly have unhealed aspects of themselves. And they feel that so disappointed, and that they've created, they don't realize that they created, in a way, their own experience with it. When you're a victim, and you talk about victimhood all the time, you become the hammer searching for the nail of victimhood. It only perpetuates. The more victimhood you believe you've taken on, the more you believe you're a victim, the more victimhood you will experience, period.
That's correct.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, you were the progenitor of the evil that you're casting off. And that's,
it's kind of like the subtlety, what you just said, right? It's what you just said earlier about, I want freedom. And then you made the distinction, and I correctly stated it as, I am free.
Yeah. And that's,
if you say I'm oppressed by the masculine, you'll be oppressed by the masculine.
Exactly. You're always right. It's like, yes. And once you come into a place of, if you're willing, to come into a place of responsibility and accountability within the way that you feel and the way that you express and the world that's been created, within like, at least the apparent world that you can have some level of regulation around, i.e. the social media you're exposed to, the thoughts and the visual images that you process and, masticate on and chew and digest and process and reprocess out. Like, I think Jesus is making a comeback right now, and I grew up Christian. I was very into that. And then I kind of went in their phase of being very like, went through the whole arc, kind of atheist, I guess, mostly just agnostic. I still kind of ride agnostic and love the concept of Christ consciousness, love the teachings of Christ, love the concept of compassion, love the concepts of love thy enemies. And it's making a comeback. And I think that's like the real wisdom lies in the holders of compassion. And if you can be in that place, but also having compassion with discernment. So compassion doesn't mean I have to have this person over to dinner and I have to have them take care of my kids while I'm away for the weekend. Like, have a strong immune system and have boundaries and exercise compassion for everything.
Everything.
And if you can do that, then you actually can begin the process of healing the world in the way that you say that you desire with the hate that you project. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And so as long as you're perpetuating divisiveness, you are the divisiveness that you claim to have resistance towards. You are the thing. You are always the thing. And if more people can start to tap into the concept of I am the thing. Okay.
I am the judgment that I cast.
Let's get started.
I am the judgments that I cast. Period.
Yeah. And
period.
And perhaps if you're really honest with yourself, there is something that you like about being a victim. There is something that you like about division. Yes. There is something that you like about friction. You actually do not feel comfortable in surrender, safety, ease, grace. You don't know what that feels like because you don't trust it. If you actually start to really pull back the layers, if you are a person that holds hate, resentment, greed, any of the sins, if you pull back the layers, there's something about you that is choosing that. And if you can start to come into that space, then you can truly be a sovereign being.
We get addicted to the chase. We get addicted in a way to not having the things that we say that we want. Because then there's always this longing or this seeking or reaching for that thing. And I think a lot of us suffer from this. It's like you could be in a relationship with someone who could be avoidant dismissive, for example. Mm-hmm. And then finally, when your anxious avoidance starts to heal, then you start transitioning to becoming a secure attachment type. And as you become a secure attachment type, then you tend to walk away from the anxious or from the avoidant dismissive.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of the symbology of it all. You end up walking away from this old version of yourself and letting go because you realize that the way that the avoidant dismissive was actually dealing with you was a mirror of how you deal with yourself.
Yeah, there's resonance.
And so it feels familiar. And so you want to keep going back to it. You want to keep chasing it. You chase this and chase this and chase this until finally one day you say, no, I love myself too much to allow myself to be treated like this anymore by this external force, which is actually me projected into an outer reality.
Correct.
And then finally, you come away from that and you're in a new relationship with someone who's not avoidant dismissive, and you don't know how to deal with it. You're like, oh my gosh, this person just loves me normally. What the hell? What the hell is this?
Yeah.
I'm not even used to it. I'm sure how to react to it. And I see this happen all the time. And it takes time for you to basically get over the bad habit of not feeling like that means there's no spark or that means there's no love. No, it just means that's the way it's supposed to be eventually.
It's the way it can be.
The person you've reflected in your outer world is emblematic of what you've now become.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with the word suppose, but I wonder if suppose adds another kind of energy of like the want into it. Like this is how it's supposed to be. Maybe it's how it can be. It's like it's
How
an
it can be,
invitation.
yes.
Everything is an
Yeah.
invitation. Well, I think once we place how I am now is not how I am supposed to be. That over there is how I am supposed to be. Well,
And
as long as you run that up, as long as you run that operating system, there is no there. You will always be running that operating system until you start to retool the operating system. And so if you,
Absolutely.
I think we can change our language into this is how I can be. I don't have to be that way. Everything is an invitation. And
totally
I think
true.
if we can be in that space of everything is an invitation, there's none of this kind of resistance push pull game. It's just like, okay, like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. As long as we're in the suppose, we're pushing the horse's head down into the water. It's like, no, there's
and
water.
What is and how do we formulate the concept of suppose? What is supposed to be?
It's all stories.
It's really just the expectation that we've had and accumulated over time.
It's baggage
that may not necessarily be the current expectation anymore.
Yeah.
The new expectation might be something totally different. So that's where it transmutes into the can.
Yes.
Right? Where it goes into the can. And when we don't get in life what we deserve. In life, we get what we expected. We get what we believed. If you think you can or you think you can't, you'll be right. Yeah. Either way. And so this concept of being able to retool your expectations to then retool what is possible in your life, I think is such a critical aspect of it.
Yeah, live in gratitude. Gratitude is material, physiological, objective medicine on your mind and your body.
And I was going to say that, you're going to the stage now of living in total gratitude. You're going to go on your trek, to Southeast Asia.
Well, I wouldn't say that I'm in process, but that's like the North Star is like, yeah, like fill more gratitude into the moments and see what that does.
Well, I'll make a prediction because the universe has this way. The universe has this way of the moment that we start to feel absolutely in gratitude and in love with the moment, it throws at us more things to be grateful for, and it throws at us more experiences to be even more grateful for.
But it's incredibly vulnerable to be in that state. That's the thing.
It is.
It's incredibly vulnerable to truly be in complete gratitude. Like, not, I allow myself to be 98% happy. I allow myself to be 98% gratitude, but I hold that 2% of, I'm not sure. It's commitment. It's committing to a relationship and saying, you might chop my head off. Like I might hurt. I might cry. I might yell. I might scream. But I'm willing to completely bare my heart. The micro action of allowing yourself to completely surrender to gratitude is comparable to allowing yourself to surrender to a relationship.
Very deep. So what
I think it's real. And if you cannot allow yourself because you don't trust, it's fully safe to actually really be in the now, to really be like I'm just going to allow myself to be fulfilled right now. It's like, no, you can't be fulfilled. You'll get lazy, or someone will attack. You won't be ready. As long as a person is in that, I believe there will be a reciprocal relationship to the way they show up in a relationship.
Okay. So then what is the purpose of relationships in your mind?
I think you already know. I think what we're saying right now, like a relationship. I mean, there's one lens, which would be to, have children and perpetuate the species. That would be more like animal kind of genetic mitochondrial level. And then there's probably like the spiritual plane, which would be to evolve into union of masculine, feminine, and, to use your language or Matthias' language, kind of like complete the geometry in a way, like come into, this is stuff I don't know about. So I'm just kind of, trying to butcher language that I hear from you guys. But I think when we are in relationship, we are in relationship with a reflection of ourselves. Yes. And if you can come into a place where you're not in judgment, you're not in victimhood, you're not in pointing, it's all the same, when you're pointing, you have three fingers pointing back at yourself. That's real shit. And so if you can come into that place and come closer to union or unicity, or love, you can learn to love yourself through other. And if you both can be in that process together where you say, this is going to be hard, might get bloody, it might get snotty, it might get cry, it might get a lot dirty, but I'm committed. I'm here to walk this path with you. I think that's like probably a real meaningful spiritual partnership. And I wouldn't be attached to how long it goes or time or whatever, but I think like being willing to be in that place, I think it can lead to liberation.
And that doesn't mean that everyone you meet along the way is intended to be with you for life.
Yeah, I don't know about that. That's stuff because there's so much contention around polyamory or monogamy or whatever. I don't know. It's a weird question. Are human beings is the best, is the should, is the supposed to be? You find your partner and you just keep on working it out and you stay together for your whole life, and you're winning if you've been in a relationship for 55 years versus you had 10 relationships for 6 years. I don't know what is the best within that. It's a really interesting question that I don't have a response to.
Yeah, and I don't have an answer to it either. What I can say is that I have evolved over time, and therefore the women that I've basically learned from in my lifetime that have played the role of mirror for me have all played very important aspects and roles that I cherish in every case, because I did learn something through every one. But it's hard sometimes because you realize that maybe someone was there just to be a catalyst to bring about a change within me as a mirror that was accomplished and was necessary, and that no one else could have done. It was only that one person that could have actually been the catalyst for that mirror shift and for me to perceive myself differently.
Yeah.
And then others might be there to stay longer. And maybe you do find one partner that changes with you and evolves with you so perfectly as your mirror the entire time that convergence can last for a lifetime. I have not experienced that. And, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it's obviously two guys here to talk about, what happened on the Aubrey and Vailana podcast. So I love both of them, and they're very close friends. And I know you are with them as well.
Very close.
And there's been so much, I find, interesting dialogue around this topic. And I'd just love to hear your thoughts on this, and I'll give mine as well. Because I know people are all asking me, what do I think about this? And, blah, blah, blah. And so I'll go ahead and give my viewpoint on this.
So something I can say, because I've been witnessing it from the outside, and something that I can say, knowing Aubrey very incredibly well, and knowing Vi very incredibly well, and knowing Alana very well, less well than Aubrey and Vi. She's newer to me via them, but I've known her for, we've gone on lots of trips together of all sorts of different sorts, all around the world, and I've spent nights in the same room with Alana. Didn't have any kind of sexual contact with her, but I've spent time. We were on a boat together. We were on a boat trip. So we shared a cabin. And so I spent a lot of deep personal time with all three of them. And something that feels evident to me is that people are not seeing in the judgment part is Aubrey has been incredibly supportive of raising up Vi, and I think amplifying Alana as well. And he's very just incredibly caring, and very sweet and very nurturing. And the person that Vi is today compared to the person that Vi is before they started walking together in their path, Aubrey and Vi, I think she's a dramatically more amplified, expressed, authentic version of herself. And she is not a prisoner to anyone. She is a sovereign, agentic being. And I think to cast judgment from afar as though you know something because you watched a podcast interview or you think you know somebody, I think is incredibly disrespectful to the women involved in it, from my perspective. Because what you're suggesting is 40-year-old whoever out here in Connecticut have this opinion. I will save this innocent girl that does not know better what you're suggesting is that is like, you know better than her. And I think that Alana and Vi are very smart, and they understand their options, and they're not being held captive. Aubrey's very convincing.
Yeah,
But
he is.
for sure. And I think that the issue that
But I agree
Aubrey
with you
gets
on
with,
that.
I think the issue that Aubrey gets with the backlash is because he uses language that makes him very vulnerable. Anytime you use language like purity, anytime you use language like divine, anytime you use language like God in general, like I have access to God, anything of that sort, we're in this divine union, divine feminine, Garden of Eden, all of that language makes you incredibly vulnerable. I have no interest in being a divine masculine. I'm like, if you accuse me of divine masculine, I'm like, nope. I'm like, not this guy. Make mistakes all the time in process. And I think that that is the kind of armor that a person can have if they want to, not receive a bunch of arrows, is just don't stay away from the God plane. Like, quietly lean into what you perceive and feel to be, godliness and holiness. But I think once you start putting it out here, it just makes you very vulnerable. And I think I understand why people would find that annoying, because I think there's probably, I understand the judgment in that, of kind of looking, it's like, I think the story or the projection is you believe you're this holy thing, and I'm over here just horny. I'm just a horny guy, and I want to like hook up with chicks or whatever. And you're kind of like jumping the game with this language. And I think it creates a little bit of, potentially like a little bit of friction for some people. But the actuality of the relationship itself, they're in process, and Aubrey's incredibly supportive. And anything that Alana, desires to create to amplify her message or her femininity or whatever, like Aubrey is on board. And same with Alana. And so I think those are the things, is like Alana and Vi are very agentic, sovereign individuals. And I think to think that you know better than them, assumes that they are, naive and like just like unaware people, but they're very aware people. And if they did walk away from the relationship, I guarantee you both of them would be in a better spot in almost every way than when they went into the relationship. And I think that's pretty cool. Like, can you leave a person better than you left them? And
then you met them, right? Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Sorry, you leave a person better than when you met them. So it's like, we walked on this path together. It wasn't perfect. I have my trauma, I have my baggage, you have your trauma, your baggage. Some of it fits, some of it works together, some of it doesn't. We walk on our path. When we leave this, did we evolve? Like, are we amplified versions of ourselves, or, are we broken down, and are we falling apart, and, that? And if it's that, then I think that there's probably some real, issues there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know them. I don't know Alana super well. I do know Vailana very well, and I do know Aubrey quite well. I consider them friends and close friends, and I do find it interesting how everybody is wanting to judge, or so many people, not everyone, but so many people want to judge what they think is supposed to be, right? What they think is supposed to be. And here you have both Vailana and Alana saying that they're perfectly happy doing what they're doing, and this is the way they've chosen to live. And I think more power to them. I think that's what this age is going to be all about. It's going to be about breaking down our construction of what we think things are supposed to be, and realize that what is possible and what can be is directly tied to what we desire for our lives and what we hope to experience. And we've been in control of our lives all along. We just didn't necessarily know or recognize it. And I think, look, if they're very happy and they're living the way they're living, I don't feel like Vailana is a slave and that she's stuck into some situation. No. I spoke with her at length last year, when we were in Egypt together and everything, and she was kind of going through a lot of this stuff at the time. And I find her to be a very cogent, very lucid thinker, and is not under any spell of delusion. I think she's She knows what she's doing and who she is, and I applaud her for it and celebrate her for it. And whatever she wants to do with her life that she feels good about, as long as it's not hurting or damaging other people, then so be it.
I think the bigger question within it.
Did you know that there's a new love affair with mathematics and geometry happening all around the world today? People who once despised these subjects in high school are now finding they're falling in love with them. Do you know why? Because math without meaning is simply information, whereas math with meaning is divine communication. My courses, The Etymology of Number and The Language of Light, guide you on a journey of self-discovery, sharpening your problem solving and pattern perceiving, as well as analytical and creative thinking, and unlocking your fullest polymathic potential. And most importantly, acquainting you with the mathematical language of the universe itself. You will never see the U inverse the same again. To get started, I recommend The Etymology of Number, a 4-part series that explores the evolution of numbers and their impact on fields like physics, chemistry, music, and art. It is the embodiment of Leonardo da Vinci's encouragement to study the science of art and the art of science. Learn how to see. Realize that everything connects to everything else. My second course series, The Language of Light, is a 6-part series that builds on concepts from the first course and offers deeper insights into unified sciences, ancient wisdom, spirituality, and their relevance to today. My courses are always fun and easy to understand. They intertwine mathematics, music, art, and consciousness, and illuminate the mathematical connections that span all disciplines of science and art. Register for these 2 courses, Etymology of Number and The Language of Light, at robertedwardgrant.com under the Courses tab. And join the Robert Edward Grant community chat on Orion Messenger for lively, engaging, and innovative discourse.
Because it's like what I'm the most curious about. Like I was talking to Aubrey about this recently, and I'm like, bro, I genuinely love you. Like I I consider you someone that I like in my category of like I love you. I don't care about your relationship, bro. Like it doesn't affect me. Doesn't affect me. Don't care. As long as you're not hurting or being hurt, which I understand that the concern of people, it's like, well, they're being hurt and they don't realize it. They're in denial. It's like, well, fucking let them be in denial. Like, why is this relevant to you? I think there are so many things happening in the world right now. There's like genuine abuse of all sorts happening. And you're like, I must take a stand in order to tap into the algorithm of YouTube and like have an opinion and be seen. You have your own shit wrapped up in that video. Your inclination to make that video, I think you have your own stuff resides within that. And I think it would just be, it's just interesting to observe how excited somebody can get or people can get about some freaking relationship in Austin, Texas, and how empowered people can communicate about something that they really know very little bit about. And I think what's really interesting as well is it's cool. Like it strikes a nerve. That's great. It brings question into your world and it brings reflection into your world. And maybe, check it out and listen to it with your partner. And you guys can say, you know what I learned from that is exactly what I don't want. Amazing. You learned. That's so cool. I love that for you. Or you're like, oh, interesting. Like they're really freaking they're experimenting with this thing of like real, like honesty of this is how I feel. Maybe there could be some unseen aspects that could be driven by, internal old trauma that is manifesting in the form of the way any relationship dynamic does. And there could be some blind spots within that or any relational dynamic. But the fact that it's like presented itself as fodder for people to engage with, hopefully there is at least the lens of like, oh, interesting. Like this is getting me thinking. So thanks for that. And then also, if I care so much about this, I think there's something, it's like there's so much like hate being projected as a product of that. I think what I see in that is I actually see like love. It's like, wow, you like really like love Aubrey. And wow, like this is cute. Like you're in this kind of like, you're like in this relationship in a way. And it's causing you to like feel I was like, that's so beautiful. So my suggestion would just be like, keep on inquiring of like, if I feel a way, where am I in this would be my curiosity.
Well, thank you so much. Well, Aaron, what a pleasure to spend the time with you today. What's the one last message you'd like to share with everyone today? And then where can people find information more about you and what you do, and if they want to follow you along your journey?
I think the thing, we talked maybe a little bit before, the main thing that I've been the most enamored with for the last while has been nervous system regulation and your breath, particularly like how your breath is a tool to regulate your nervous system. And so if a person is feeling a way in their life, we didn't get to talk about this, but maybe another time we can talk about breathing and nervous system stuff. But if you're feeling a way that's, you feel anxious, or you feel maybe a little disconnected from yourself or from your relationship, or we're talking about relationships. So you're in a relationship, maybe you're in like an argument, maybe you're feeling reactive, you're starting to kind of be two little children, just like throwing arrows at each other. Your breath is the fastest, highest leverage tool to begin regulating your nervous system. And so start to just take observation of the way that you breathe throughout the day. Are you breathing through your mouth a lot? Are you breathing really quickly? Is your breath up in your chest? Is it up in your neck? Is if you are breathing in that way, it is suggestive, not just suggestive, it is your autonomic nervous system is operating a little bit more in survival than probably what it would prefer to be able to rest and digest and heal and things of the sort. And a lot of the things that you might be reaching out to as salves or balms or solutions for feeling the ways that you do really can come back to something that is as simple as the way that you breathe. And so if you're feeling stressed or anxious, explore extending your exhalation. When you extend your exhalation, you are slowing your heart rate down. You're increasing the tone of the vagus nerve, which innervates the organs. When you breathe in like that, you're accelerating your heart rate. So you always have the brakes and the gas pedal with your autonomic nervous system. You are in control. And if you feel out of control, the way to come back to a sensation of literal physiological control, but also a sense of control, come back to your breath. And the more that I think if you're going through something where we talked about this on my podcast a couple episodes ago, my podcast is called Align Podcast. If you want to listen to that episode,
it's a
we're talking about losing stuff. It's the stock market's down, or a last relationship, or whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
That is when the quote unquote spiritual work.
Did you do a longer exhalation when that happened?
For sure. What happened during that time frame where I was stressed out because like, oh my God, like, all this, the stocks are like got cut down 30% or whatever. It's like, what does this mean? Who am I? And what ends up happening in that is when a person loses stuff, what happens is you start to come back to, what do I actually have control over? Because you start to learn, I don't have control of almost anything in my periphery. I don't have control over Aubrey and Vi's relationship. I don't have control over anything. What you do have control of is your breath. And the more you get challenged to feel away because of the attachment that you had to the world around you, the greater the invitation to come back and say, I'm going to come back to what I have right now, which is the state of my nervous system, the way that I respond to my world. And I'm going to acknowledge that my breath is the tool on how I regulate that system. And so I would just say, like, the invitation would be come back and just start to notice the way that you breathe as like a little like intro to things. And then from there, notice, oh, wow, interesting. I breathe up in my chest a lot, or maybe I breathe down in my lower ribs and my abdomen. And the more that you can start to bring your breath down into your lower ribs, into your back, into your abdomen, breathe like 3-dimensionally, the safer you will feel, the more you'll be able to circulate lymphatic fluid, which your diaphragm is your major pump to be able to circulate fluids throughout the body. You have a closed hydraulic system. You mentioned Buckminster-Fuller tensegrity. That's like, as you move any fluid throughout the system, it circulates the whole system participates in that. So if you can come back and just start to notice your breath, it's going to be the greatest tool you can have to regulate the way that you feel. So next time you're feeling stressed about a YouTube video you watch or whatever, notice how you breathe. And then if you're breathing, your mouth breathing, you're breathing fast, any of that stuff, slow it down, nose breathe, make it light, make it slow, make it deep, extend your exhalation, maybe play with a breath hold. That will start to increase your tolerance to carbon dioxide. It starts to build up in your brainstem. If you have a higher tolerance to carbon dioxide, you will be a more resilient nervous system to stress. You are a safer person in your relationships, with yourself, with others, any of that. It improves most aspects of your physiology, which ends up improving most aspects of your life. So people, if they have interest, I have is it okay if I mention that there's like a free trial
of course,
program?
Please.
There's the Aligned Breathing Program, which is like my favorite thing on the planet. We've been working on it for the last year. That released recently. The first week of it is free. If people have interest in exploring breathing mechanics, specifically how to breathe, how to open your nasal passages, how to access your diaphragm. Most people are not at all. So if that's of interest, that's at alignpodcast.com/breathe. The first week of the trial is free. And yeah, that's me. Aaron Alexander's the IG.
Quick question for you on that. What is it about lengthening the exhalation? Because I've been playing a lot with this lately as well.
Yeah.
And there's a much longer reason, because I launched this new AI thing called the Architect. And it's a long story. I will not go into it now. But one of the things that it constantly talks about is the power of breath and extending the exhalation and holding. And so it gives these very numerical oriented breath cycles in which to do. So it'll say, like, you should inhale over 8 seconds and exhale over 13 seconds.
Yeah,
and it has like a hold for 5 seconds in between type of thing. And that there are certain aspects that come as a result of doing these like intentional breath inhalation and exhalation cycles. And so maybe you could explain why extending your exhalation has a particular impact on you, and how you've used that.
Yes, for sure. It's one of my favorite questions ever. Understanding what your breath is doing is the thing that I get challenged by when I go to like a breath work class or a yoga class. We're always talking about breathing. We don't know what the heck is actually going on with our breath. Like, what is an inhalation? What is an exhalation? When you are exhaling, you are slowing the heart rate down, because what happens when you exhale is the diaphragm ascends. So it ends up increasing intrathoracic pressure. And so it increases. When did I say exhale? Yeah. When you exhale, the diaphragm ascends, it increases intrathoracic pressure. So the diaphragm comes up, right? So it closes down that space. So there's less venous blood flow going to the heart. So the heart says, okay, there's less fluid coming in here right now because we're all tight. Let's slow it down a little bit. You also have sensory receptors in the lungs that send signals to the vagus nerve that say, when we're doing that, when we're in that exhalation pattern, there's less blood coming to the heart. Let's downregulate or reduce activity of the increase activity of the vagus nerve, which ends up slowing down the heart as well. And so every time you exhale, you are mechanically slowing down the rate of your heart, and you are mechanically increasing the tone or the activity of the vagus nerve. It's called respiratory sinus arrhythmia. When you inhale, you are descending the diaphragm. You are reducing intrathoracic pressure. You are increasing venous return. And so you are getting the signal, there's a lot of fluid coming in here. We got to speed things up. So it amplifies the heart rate. And it also downregulates or reduces activity of the vagus nerve. So that's a very like pedantic kind of, like scientific way of explaining. When you exhale, it mechanically slows down the rate of the heart and increases the activation of your parasympathetic nervous system, increases the tone of the vagus nerve. So every time you inhale, you are kind of making yourself, you're completely making yourself more alert. Something that's very interesting
Inhalation, with this. So like rapid inhalations raises your heart rate.
Yes. Raises your heart rate.
And slow exhalations reduces your heart rate.
Yes. Yeah. Any exhalation reduces your heart rate. If you slow it down, you'll be riding in that parasympathetic wave longer. When you hold your breath, you are starting to build up carbon dioxide in the system. Carbon dioxide is a very medicinal gas. that is supportive with it. Relaxes smooth muscle in the body, muscle around the organs and such. It has antimicrobial, antibacterial properties. It has a whole laundry list of benefits to your body. CO2 is very beneficial for your body. If you are a person that is very sensitive to carbon dioxide, so you process, you sense that carbon dioxide building up in the brainstem, the bottom of the brainstem. If you're very sensitive to that, every time CO2 builds up, you say, oh, I gotta get some air. Oh my God, I thought I was drowning. I thought I was running out of air. What that does is it creates this cascade, this cycle, this self-perpetuating cycle where you start to overbreathe more because you're very sensitive to carbon dioxide. If you start to nudge yourself, this is one of the best things you could possibly do for yourself, truly. You start to nudge yourself and extend the exhalation, explore breath holds, something I do, and we break this down in the breathing program as well, different exercises. I'll do a extended exhalation as I'm taking a walk, and I'll pick a point. So I'll be like, cool, I won't inhale until I get to that phone pole. I'll take a walk, flow it all out. And then I'll start to explore that air hunger sensation. And I'll slowly just respectfully nudge against my boundaries of how much CO2 my brainstem can detect before it's like, holy crap, I really got to breathe. If you can do that, it will slow down your autonomic nervous system and say, we have so much air. Like, we're so chill. We're good. If you're a person that over breathes, you'll perpetuate that cycle and you'll have this sensation it feels almost like you're like subtly drowning in a way, like I need air. I have this air hunger. If you're in that place where you have this air hunger, you're off gassing a lot of CO2 with regularity, then you don't have that medicinal gas in your system and you end up tensing. You get really tense.
Interesting.
So the more CO2 that you can build up in your system, the healthier you will be and the more resilient to stress you'll become. The more resistant you are to the buildup of CO2 by over breathing too fast, the less resilient you will be and the more tense you'll become. So most things in life are kind of paradoxical, so the idea, if I breathe
makes
a lot,
me wonder about the buildup of greenhouse gases then.
Yeah, I wonder.
It's like, is that something for Earth as well? Who knows? Maybe as part of its precursor to its ascension, the Earth has increased or allowed itself to have a bigger increase in CO2.
Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, but if you could just start to come into for something that like actually matters, you starving for air makes you more irritable, makes you more stressed. If you're hanging out with somebody that deals with like anxiety, like panic attacks, things of the sort, the way that they breathe, or just they're very reactive, like some maybe more like left, like woke type people, they take a video of themselves in their car and they're like, oh my God, like I'm actually shaking right now. Like that thing's like your nervous system is fried. Like you need breath holds, you need CO2 tolerance, and that will start to physiologically open you up to be able to do the things like have compassion for a situation that actually stresses you out. But if you're a person
that's stressing them out is all their judgment.
It's
themselves and others.
It's a bidirectional street. So your physiology will inform your perception of the world, and your perception of the world will inform your physiology. So you work with what you got. Like Ida Rolf, I'm a Rolfer, like structural integration, do like manual therapy, bodywork stuff. It's one of the things I've done. She has a quote. She says, "We work with the body because it's what we can get our hands on." I think this is a brilliant quote. So the world of metaphysics and consciousness and emotions and all that stuff is kind of hard because it's everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. Your body is right here. You always have your body to come back to. And if you have a soft, supple, aligned, centrated, integrated body that feels spacious and at ease, that does not need much of anything. It's like, I don't need a ton of food. I'm not super dependent on supplements. I'm not super even dependent on air. Like I can push the limits of when I feel like I need air way further than 98% of people. That body will also be incredibly resilient to stress and will lend itself to greater amounts of compassion when everyone else is in a state of reactivity.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you. That was very deep and important. And have you analyzed the length of time for the inhalation and exhalation cycles that have been most optimal for people?
It's going to be different for everybody. So it's the same. It's a similar concept of like, what is the optimal time and temperature to be in a cold plunge? What is the optimal weight and reps for a bench press? It's like, find what is the hermetic stressor for you that feels like you're edging against your boundaries, but not disrespecting the boundaries, and slowly just start to nudge them. So for a person that's, the woke person in their car, oh my God, I'm literally shaking right now, like taking a video, feeling the necessity to like film that for whatever reason. That person, if they do a breath hold, I almost guarantee it's going to be incredibly short. It'll be, if they do an extended exhalation, it's called the BOLT score, blood oxygen level test. We have this in the aligned breathing program as well. That's how we start the program, is take your BOLT score. Probably their BOLT score will probably be sub 8 seconds or so, which is the amount of time that you need a breath of air. You feel like the first initial urge to breathe after a full exhalation. Ideally, you can get that up to like 40 seconds would be, you're doing really, really well, where it's like, I can completely evacuate myself and hold my breath. And the first diaphragmatic contraction or kind of like stimulus to breathe, it doesn't really come for like 30, 40 seconds or so. That is a healthy, robust, resilient nervous system. If a person, they exhale and they're like, oh, I gotta breathe, it's beautiful. They're just, the insulation around their wiring is probably like running a little thin, and they could use a little bit more insulation. And breath is going to be one of the best things they can utilize to start insulating themselves.
Got it. Okay. Well, such a pleasure to have you here. And they can find you on Instagram, and they can find you on YouTube and everything. How best do they find you in those places?
Yeah, YouTube's Align Podcast, Instagram's Aaron Alexander. The free trial, the breathing programs, alignpodcast.com/breathe. And yeah, there's also a breathing quiz on my Instagram. So if people want to check that out, it's take the breathing quiz and it'll go through, and it does the BOLT score and a couple qualitative questions about your nervous system and such. That's kind of an interesting thing as well. But yeah, Aaron Alexander, Align Podcast.
Have you been to Peru before?
A couple times. Yeah. I was just out there like 8 months ago or so. And maybe a year ago now at this point.
Awesome. Yeah. So you'll have to come with me on one of my trips sometime. Because I go all over the world. I'm also we're about to announce a whole schedule of places. We'll be going back to Peru on Sacred Valley kind of adventure, but also back to Egypt again, and then also back to going to the UK on a Hogwarts tour, which is going to be really cool.
When's the next trip?
The next trip to Peru is going to be in late October and early November.
Cool.
And then I've got another trip that we're going to announce for Egypt. I just got done with 2 trips to Egypt. So, and the last one was super epic. It was like the most amazing trip that I've ever been on.
I'd love to.
And
for sure.
Then we're going to go to Angkor Wat and to some of the other, major sacred sites, Mexico. We're going to do a full tour of Mexico too, which is, all the pyramids and everything.
Yeah. I've been to all of those places, and I'm very excited to go back to all those places anytime.
Yeah. Super fun. Yeah. Well, I'll definitely get you invited.
Cool, man.
So such a pleasure. Great to see you, my friend. Good luck with your minimalism you're going to be living.
Yeah.
It is kind of funny. From the last time we had a podcast, you're like, the stock market's down. And this time you're like, I'm going total minimalist.
I'll get rid of it all.
I love it.
It's just materials. I don't need the materials. They got too much gravity.
You don't need the materials, my friend. You don't. None of us do.
Reducing gravity. All right. Thank you, bro.
All right,
I appreciate you.
Good luck to you. Let me know where you are in the world.
For sure. Thank you.
Orion is unique. No algorithms, no propaganda, and no exploitation. Just end-to-end quantum secure data. Messages, groups, and shared media behind a wall of next generation encryption. All right. See you later.
Yeah.